Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith. Oops. And today I'm talking about Cracking Spines 3 Decades of Horror by Jason Cavallaro. And, well, I'm just going to read the back cover copy because it's easiest for me. I don't have to think this way. So this is what it says. Do you want to explore horror and don't know where to start? Or are you a hardcore reader looking for some obscure titles? Either way, this book is for you. Utilizing spoiler-free micro-reviews and split into 37 subcategories, Jason presents a fun and informative tour of horror fiction catering to every type of horror reader. The beginner. What the heck is a Cthulhu? The intermediate. What the heck is a Richard Lehman? The person who doesn't realize they like horror. I don't like horror, but I love The Walking Dead. Cracking Spines is the culmination of Jason's 30-plus years of horror research, aka reading in his bedroom, where he has amassed well over 3,000 horror novels read. He has already read the bad ones, so you can skip to the good ones. So, for the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Bit surprising, I think, for a nonfiction book, but there you have it. And let me tell you why. Well, we'll get to the why in just a moment. First of all, there's an introduction by Mark Cyber, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who, runs the venerable Horror Drive-In website and is the author of the He Who Types Between the Rows series. I've read the first 2 in that series. I don't have the third one yet. And then there's a foreword by Jason where he talks about a little bit about himself, a little bit about his method, how he put the book together, etc., etc. And then we get into the recommendations. There's over 600 books recommended in this book. Now, this does say Cracking Spines, 3 Decades of Horror. We got this crazy picture on the front, but not everything in here is a horror book. Just to let you know. And Jason says that and basically says, hey, it's his book. He's doing what he wants. And that's one of the reasons that I gave this book 5 out of 5. I like Jason's very casual, conversational writing style. When he's talking about his method in the foreword, it feels like he's explaining things to you. He's just talking to you. Hey, this is how I did things. There's parentheticals. Sorry, not sorry. It's true. Blah, 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 blah. The not sorry part was a parenthetical. My method, step 1, read a few thousand books. This is the hard part. Step 2, rate each one and enter onto spreadsheet. Yes, I am that kind of nerd. Step 3, delete every book with a negative or average rating. This left only the 4 and 5-star books, and over 100 of the 4-star books didn't make the cut. Step 4, tag each book with genre, subgenre, pertinent info, and sort into each category. This was annoying and complicated, and I really should have charged more for this book. And then step 5, rank my favorite books. So you can see just from that he's got that sort of, that fun, tongue-in-cheek kind of style. And then each section and then subsection starts with a little bit of an introduction about what he's going to be talking about. So the very first one, part 1 is super duper natural, and the first part of that is vampires. And so he talks a little bit about why he chose this as the first one, a little bit about vampire stuff, and then he'll tell you 96 vampire books read. Here are my top 13. And almost all of these are 13 books, his top 13, but he breaks that rule a few times. There's 20. And again, he's like, sue me. It's my book. So he talks about his top 13 vampire books. And then next is werewolves, etc., etc. Now, I do not agree with everything he has chosen. My favorite vampire novel, The Light at the End, spoilers, not on his list. Oh, and he also has honorable mentions. So let's say in vampires, there's the top 13, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 honorable mentions. And so, again, with vampires, The Light at the End by John Skipp and Craig Spector, not on this list. Very upset by that. But then I haven't read, what did I say, 96 vampire novels. So, yeah, again, I don't agree with everything. There are some books that he has on here that I completely disagree with. There's one book in particular, and it's not a horror book. It's a science fiction book that I've read the first chapter and started the second chapter. Couldn't stand it. And it's a hugely popular book that's been made into a movie. A hugely popular movie. I couldn't stand it. And he mentioned some other ones. There's some books in here that I cannot stand. There are books that I love that I would have put on the list that he doesn't have on the list. But there are tons of books here that I do agree with. And coming back around, the other reason I gave it 5 out of 5 is because it is so effective. I don't know how many times I stopped reading, went to Amazon, and added something to my wish list. Tons of books added to my wish list. Either sometimes, just a few times, because it's a book I hadn't thought of in a while, and I always put things on my wish list basically as a reminder. I can go through it and say, oh yeah, I want to pick up that book at some point. So books that I'd always wanted to pick up and just haven't thought about it, forgot for whatever reason. So those went on the wish list, but the majority were books I wasn't familiar with, or books I'd maybe heard of but didn't know anything about, and so didn't even bother to put them on the wish list or anything, or pick them up. But he, said whatever he said, and I'm like, yes, I'm putting that on the wish list. So 5 out of 5 for that. The writing style and the fact that a very effective book, at least for me. I'm picking up tons of these books. The reviews are barely reviews, so this isn't like some in-depth critique or review of these books. Sometimes you only get a sentence, and he says he wants to completely avoid spoilers, and so he doesn't really say too much. Some books he doesn't even say what the book is about. You've got the category it's in, so it's in the category of ghosts, so it's going to be a book with ghosts, but he might simply say, this is the best book that so-and-so has ever written. No arguments. Or, whatever he says. I'm trying to find a short one just to sort of give you an example. Here you go. So, spoilers in the werewolf list. Number 10, Wolfland by Jonathan Janz. Fast and brutal. It reads like a Richard Lehman novel, which is one of the highest compliments I can give. That's the entire thing that he says about that book. I've read that book. I believe I have a review of that book on my channel. So, I'm not going to go into all the books on all the lists, but let's see. I will tell you most of the lists. Now, one little problem in the table of contents, it simply says part 1. It doesn't tell you what part 1 is, which, as I said, was super duper natural. So it's part 1, part 2, part 3, but it doesn't tell you what those parts are. But it does tell you, so in super duper natural, vampires, werewolves, dead stuff, ghosts, possession, and haunted houses, and then miscellaneous monsters. Part 2, which I believe is human something, serial killers, cannibals, revenge, crime, thriller, mysteries. Part 3, don't remember what this category was, but we have slashers, eco-horror, apocalypse, survival horror, all in one, folk horror, Halloween, war. No animals were harmed in the making of this book, which unfortunately for me was not like killer animals. This book featuring animals. Music, coming of age, dark and creepy. Part 4, LOL, so horror comedy. I'm Not Crying, You're Crying, books that are going to make you cry. And then Splat. Part 5, WTF, So I think this was just like books that just really weird, off the wall, what the hell did I just read kind of books. Science fiction and horror, and dark fantasy. Part 6, short stories. So his top, however many, 13 or 20 short stories, novellas. I like big books and I cannot lie, so epics, huge honkin' books, collections and anthologies. And part 7, classics. And he goes anything before 1990, and it's not going to have like Dracula, Frankenstein, the stuff that everybody's going to know. And then adaptations. So books that were adapted into movies or TV shows, I believe. Part 8, horror moonlighting. So this was horror authors writing something other than horror, and non-horror authors dipping their toe into horror. Horror comics and graphic novels. I'm not sure why this has its own category, because there are horror comics and graphic novels throughout the entire book. But it does get its own, end up getting its own category. 32 deep cuts. So this was books that even he thinks maybe even hardcore fans haven't read. And you know what? I have a special message for Jason, who hopefully will watch this video. Let's go to deep cuts. There was something that I wanted to say, and now I need to look to remind myself of what it was. And it was something. Let's see. Make sure this is... Nope, that's not it. Oh, there it is. Deep cuts. So, let's see. Saying Uncle by Greg Giffune. I don't think I've read that. I think I have it, but I don't think I've read it, so that wasn't it. I know what the one was. Mama Fish. I'm pretty sure I read Mama Fish by Rio Yours. That's on this list. I'm not going to tell you where. But, right here. Okay, so before we get to the main part of this, Jason, I just want to let you know, in the honorable mentions, I have read Just Like Hell by Nate Southard. I read it. I had the little original version of it when it first came out. It's the first Nate Southard I ever read. I agree with you. Fantastic book. I have read Rough Cut by Brian Pinkerton. I believe that's the first Brian Pinkerton I ever read. Made me a fan of his. I don't have a copy of it right now. I need to pick up a copy again. But really a big fan of Rough Cut as well. And the other Brian Pinkerton stuff that I have read. But, and I'll just throw out here, since you do have a Gord Rollo book here. I got to hang out with Gord Rollo at a convention. And Gene O'Neill gave Gord some money. Gene had a panel he had to be on. And so he gave some cash to Gord, and myself and some other fans all went and had lunch. Got to hang out with Gord. And then I got to be a beta reader for Gord. And he killed me in, you know what? I do not want to make a mistake. Because I've been killed in a couple of books. And I just want to make sure that I give the right title. What? You can't tell me that's the only Gord Rollo that's listed here. Valley of the Scarecrow. Is that the one that I was killed in? Nope. That is not the one. Oh, see? I got confused. I'm thinking of a John Everson book. I did beta read Valley of the Scarecrow, but I was not killed in that book. There's a pumpkin book by John Everson. I was killed in that. But anyway, that's all neither here nor there. The big thing is, and this will be a spoiler for the list, your number 2 for Deep Cuts, Cage of Night by Ed Gorman. The book came out in 92. I read it in 96. I was almost certain that I had read this book, but I had to look in my list, I have a list of, in case you don't know, Jason, I have a list of every book I've read since 1985. And I was like 98% certain I had read this book. So I looked through my list from 92 moving forward. And 1996, I read Cage of Night. Huge Ed Gorman fan. I've read tons of his mysteries, tons of his thrillers, tons of his westerns. I agree. He should be a household name. And I actually discovered him through a comic book in, I believe, again, I'm 98% certain, when Max Allan Collins writes Ms. Tree, or wrote the Ms. Tree comics, and DC was publishing Ms. Tree Quarterly, and I believe it was in Ms. Tree Quarterly that Ed Gorman was writing backup stories. And so that's the first time I ever heard of Ed Gorman, was in Ms. Tree Quarterly, and he's a writer of mysteries and such, and so I started reading his stuff. Yes, Cage of Night, absolutely fantastic, and Ed Gorman, a great writer. My personal message to Jason has finished. So back to the book, folks. So deep cuts, and then we move on to young adult, and then nonfiction and reference. And then part 9 is debuts. So his favorite debuts from authors, first novels or whatever. Writing duos, so obviously pairs, co-written books. Stephen King, so he gave Stephen King his own category. And then hot takes, some of which I agree with, some of which I disagree with. And I will, again, a little spoilery. His number one hot take here is Stephen King isn't the best horror author. Which is interesting because I've been trying to get together with Kaylee Dobbs of Happy Goat Horror to discuss this subject. Not necessarily saying Stephen King isn't the best horror author, but why is Stephen King the best-selling horror author, the most world-renowned horror author? Why aren't other certain authors as popular, as best-selling? And if he's not the best, who would you say is? But since Kaylee Dobbs and I live in vastly different time zones, not the greatest difference in times, but and we both have jobs and we both record videos and we're reading all the time. It's not always easy for us to get together and make a video, but this is a subject that I've wanted to discuss with her in a video for our respective channels. So that's one of his hot takes, and there's quite a few. And then there's a little afterword, and then there's appendixes. Appendix by section, and then an appendix. Let's get to the next one. Where's the next appendix? Adaptations in order of appearance. So when he talks about book or comic to movie or TV adaptations. And then the last appendix is just references, and there's just a couple things there. So anyway, that's basically everything that's in the book. Over 600 books recommended. And again, 5 out of 5 stars for the writing style and for the effectiveness of the book. Cracking Spines, 3 Decades of Horror, Jason Cavallaro. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If he writes more of this sort of nonfiction stuff, I'm definitely going to be checking it out. Very excited to see what he does next. And I felt a little inspired when I was reading this, and I thought maybe I would take my reading remembrances videos and make that into a book. I don't know if anybody would be interested in that. I wouldn't just like transcribe what I've said in my reading remembrances videos, but it would be basically the same thing, and it would be somewhat like this. I wouldn't be reviewing, not a big long review of every book in my reading remembrances, just a few sentences, maybe, some of what I've described in the video when I describe the book. This is what it is. I certainly wouldn't be doing like, here's the back cover copy for the book. But anyway, just This inspired me. So there you have it. No real question for this video, and except maybe, I mean, is this the kind of thing that you would find interesting? As a lifelong fan of books in general, horror in particular, but of course, regular viewers know that I read pretty much every genre except romance. Um, uh, so of course, this is the kind of thing I love, and as I said, I was pausing, putting things on my wish list. I love these books of lists, especially if it's going to introduce me to more stuff that I will hopefully love. Um, is it the kind of thing that interests you? Let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you've read anything similar to this, any sort of list book, recommendations book. Let me know about that in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Blue Sky in the description below. That's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.